who weren't with us yesterday. In the unlikely event of an emergency, a siren and bells will sound continuously. So the best exit to leave is just to my left here and assemble on the grass area in front of the floral clock on Marine Parade. If there's an earthquake, of course, drop, cover and hold. Also, just a reminder that we are currently in alert level 2. So please ensure that you follow all of the guidelines around that. There are masks available at the front entrance here if anyone would like one, and all the councillors have one in front of them if they'd like to use it. So again, just be aware of the guidelines that we need to be following. Firstly, just like to advise, of course, that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. And moving into our agenda, we have apologies from Councillor Bogue, who is feeling unwell. She may well join us this afternoon for deliberations, however. And I do just have an apology from Councillor Simpson for lateness. He should be joining us very, very shortly. Do I have a mover for apologies, please? Thank you, Councillor Mawson, seconded by Councillor Crown. And do we have any conflicts of interest? Very good. Now, again, I note that we've all been provided with a list of the order of submitters. And for the speakers who are present today, just to let you know, you do have 10 minutes to make your submission. There will be one bell at 8 minutes and 2 bells at 10 minutes. And that time allocation does include questions from councillors. So I extend a warm welcome to the community members that are here with us today. And first up today we have Alan Mcmillan from the Taradell Residents Association. And Alan, we've got a spot for you up the front of the room here. Right up the front. Welcome.
Alan, just make sure you get close to the microphone.
Do that. Well, I won't shift it, but that'll be fine. Right.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for allowing the Taradell Residents Association, who I'm speaking on behalf of, the opportunity to present a summary of the submissions from our association to the council. And I'd also just like to acknowledge councillors from the Taradell region. We've got Tania and Rhonda, Graham and Nigel. I'd like to acknowledge them and thank them for the support that they've been providing us since they have been on the council. Right, so what I'm going to do is just a summary of a meeting that we had. We had a subcommittee formed from the Taradell Residents Association, and we went through the booklet that was provided, and our comments relate to the feedback section at the back of this. There were a number of areas that we noted as key areas. We made notes on these, and which we submitted in our submission. And on these areas, we had a particular focus on the Taradell community as well as the wider Napier community. First area, rates. Very quickly, the Taradell Residents Association supported the average rates increase of 4.8% per household, and option 1 was the one that we preferred using the 2 reserve funds. That was our preference for that option. Option 2 could be considered if further funds were needed after option 1 had been fully utilised. That was the comment from there for that one. On to number 2, post-COVID recovery. This is an area of major concern not only for Napier but also nationally, and since the last few days it's become internationally as well. New Zealand was doing so well, and there's going to be major changes here. But the Taradell Residents Association supported the 3 focus recovery areas. Number 1, the Recovery Projects Fund, We Are Team Napier, and Rates and Rental Relief. And the ultimate vision, together we'll restore and enhance vibrancy, innovation and well-being in our community now and into the future. We thought that was very good, although a focus on the now, what plans and strategies are currently being considered for the future. That was a question that we had there, and I know that there's going to be changes even as I'm speaking now. There's things happening in regard to this, and it's not only just affecting us in Napier, it's affecting the whole country, in fact the globe. So, but that was our support for that one there. Number 3 was to do with water. The Taradell Residents Association fully supports the council's plans to make the current water program a top priority, especially being able to provide clean water to all households. We thought that was very great. We fully supported that. Number 4 was the curbside rubbish collection. Again, supported the curbside waste collection plan, but a question from our association was regarding the waste minimisation. Will the plan changes be able to provide useful data that will help to further reduce waste and show that the residents are effectively using the new curbside waste collection? Now, I understand with this new collection there's quite a lot of data that can be gathered, and we were hoping that can be shared with the community and let everybody know as we're moving through this, what we are achieving, how well we're doing, and what areas we could even do better in. So that was a point on that one there. Number 5 was the library. We could, going through this, we could see no comment in the annual plan relating to the proposed alterations to the Taradell Library, and I have gathered that there are plans in place to do some work in the Taradell Library. I know we talk about the main Napier Library here, but in the meantime, this is the Taradell Library. The usage of that library has really increased, and what we were concerned about was that work that has been talked about being planned out there actually gets onto the works program. We know that plans have been adopted for the Territorial Library to be upgraded and the west wall to be earthquake strengthened. We submit that this work should be undertaken as soon as possible, if not included in the upgrade plans, but shifting the toilets from the front entrance to the west wall could be added. We feel that for health and safety in the entranceway of the Taradell Library, you come straight in and you've got the toilets are right beside you. You've got to walk past them. So they're very small toilets. The doors are often open. And one of the areas that we'd even suggested was that maybe if the toilets can't be shifted to the west wall when the work's done on that the main entrance be moved just a few metres along, and that it makes an anteroom leading into the toilets from the library, and that the main entrance is a main entrance, avoiding going straight past the toilets. That was an area of concern that a number of members have expressed, and we felt that for health and safety reasons that's really a must-do. The present situation of having the toilets right beside the front entrance is certainly not a welcoming feature for all visitors. But the association agrees that the decision to return the Napier Library to its original location, this is a great idea. We believe that this should be actioned as soon as possible, as by the time the upgrade of the original site is completed, it may be many years before Napier has an adequate city library. So we'd like to see that happening as soon as you can, and allow the museum to get back into its full role as a museum. So and help to extend the exhibitions and improve the visitors' experience of the Napier Museum, which is currently a bit short-changed with the library being in there. Number 6, street management. The association fully supports the plan to replace and upgrade the current CCTV network as outlined in the annual plan, and any further work that will further help the Taradell street management program would be much appreciated. Just our little push there for Taradell. Any other feedback? Now, there's just 3 points that I've got here. The Taradell Park development. Taradell Park is much valued by the Taradell residents to enjoy both actively and passively. And we did note under the Reserves Act of 1977 an emphasis on open space for recreational reserves, and the retention of this, what we call the village green as an open space, is seen as a valuable jewel within our community, and any further development proposals received by the council should trigger a full consultation process if there's going to be any extensions of other buildings or anything onto that area, or further development for sporting facilities. We'd like to be, the Taradell community feel that we could be further consulted in regard to that. The National Aquarium, the Residents Association supports 2 of the options outlined in the annual plan, including the refurbishment of the current facility and the repurposing of the facility, maybe to include more environmental focused education programs. And I know that that was something suggested by the Environmental Napier Youth Group last year. The final option of closing the facility received a definite no from the association. And the final point was community housing. We had a concern expressed from some of the committee members, concerns being raised by those who currently occupy the community housing units. The residents are now very concerned about their futures, especially as one of the options mentioned to sell or lease the entire housing portfolio to another entity. They wanted to know what consultation is planned to take place between the council and the residents of those community housing villages, so that they sort of felt they'd heard things, but they weren't too sure where they stood in regard to that. So that was a question there. And that was it. That's our submission, and we've covered all of those areas. And thank you once again for allowing me to come along and share that with you. But I don't know whether there's any questions or anybody's got anything that they'd like to ask me about.
Thank you, Alan. Are there any... Councillor Tapani.
Morning, Alan. Thank you for your submission and coming in today and speaking on behalf of the Taradell community. You mentioned around the desire for the community to retain as much green space for whatever purpose. Last LTP and annual plan, I recall a group within the Taradell community presenting a proposal that looked at some develop around the outside of that space. Your phrase was particularly around what might come to council from this point forward. As that one has already reached council, I'm looking for confirmation that there was sufficient engagement, consultation and engagement with you and the community you represent. Are you aware of the project for a start?
No, not that one. No, sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, not. That's a project that's already been discussed.
Yes, yep. So what I'll do then is I'll leave that for, because it's not my ward, so
No.
I don't want to put you in the wrong place. So I'll leave it at that and wait for the ward councillors to touch base with you.
No. And I don't, that really
Short
wasn't
answer's
raised
just as
by
good.
anybody who was, from our subcommittee who looked at that. Nobody had raised that.
Oh, we'll follow up.
Yeah, I think further to that, I don't think there's anything formally underway. I think we were just approached with a concept which has never been formally discussed or,
Okay.
yeah, so it was just essentially a submission that had been made to us, which at this point in time hasn't gone any further or been considered in any formal capacity. So certainly the TRA would be brought into that discussion if it did ever progress any further.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
And
My
I'm
apologies
sure
for
that
the confusion.
if there was anything, we'd hear, because where we have our monthly meetings, we have representatives from the council, our Taradell ward members come along, and so that's anything that there's an opportunity for them to share that with us, or for us to ask any questions that we may have.
Thank you, Alan.
Good.
Any further questions, councillors? Very good. Thank you very much,
Good,
Alan.
thank you. Thanks very much. Good, thank you.
And I'd now like to welcome Amelia and Emily Otto for our second submission of the day. Welcome.
Okay. Kia ora, good morning, Madam Mayor and councillors. Most of you we know, but a special kia ora to those who are meeting us for the first time. I think that's Councillors Crown, is that right? No, sorry, Brown. Mawson and Crown. Okay. Nice to meet you. And I think Councillor Tapani, we know Councillor Crystal. So we are aware that the issue, we're wanting to speak to the issue of the National Aquarium this morning. We know that it's not currently on the current annual plan due to a funding hiccup, let's say. However, it is an issue dear to our hearts, and it will be an issue up for discussion and consultation in the future. So we appreciate that we can talk about that this morning. We'll just address you briefly about it. Firstly, we'd like to applaud you for your Project Shapeshifter proposal, because we were disappointed that didn't go through. We thought it was a very bold proposal with a lot of potential, and so that's when we saw it in here that you were thinking about maybe closing the aquarium. We thought we should come and have our say. So first of all, well done for that. Our main message today is to let you know that we, like many others in the community, thought you were on the right track, or are on the right track with that. You've already done all the groundwork, so we sincerely hope that you will relook at it, tweak it, consult with the community and try again. We'd like to help you with that consultation process as much as possible. I only just came across your People's Panel thing online that you have and signed up for that yesterday. I missed a lot of the stuff last year, and I think a lot of other people in the community did too, just based on what we've been reading online with reports, etc. So we just had a suggestion that maybe you could create a National Aquarium think tank, and we'd love to sign up for that, specifically for this issue. There are a lot of people in the community like us who have ideas and suggestions and are very passionate about making the National Aquarium the best in the country, a facility which people will come back and visit again and again, as long as it's affordable, and a facility that inside and out makes you proud and makes you go, wow. Now, in terms of wow, we've visited a lot of facilities over the years. We've got 3 children, and they've grown up with those sorts of, being taken to those sorts of facilities. We've been lucky enough to visit, have a behind-the-scenes tour at the Vancouver Aquarium. My daughters were invited there, and they got to experience that firsthand. So we know, or we've seen what works and what appeals to people, and also what brings in the crowds, and also has that educational aspect side of it too. So the Vancouver Aquarium in Vancouver, obviously. I know that you've been in contact with them. You had contact with them when you were doing the proposal. But the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco is another place that if you don't already know about it, that we'd ask you to sort of maybe have a look at. We've written this down as a recap at the end. We'll pass it on to you. They've created this almost 100% carbon neutral building. So the building itself is very environmentally friendly, and inside they have an aquarium, but there's a focus on science as well, and I think that's what you were sort of going for with your shapeshifter proposal. So if you don't already know about it and you want to sort of have a look at that, we've written that down for you as well. And we think that's key to any worthwhile, meaningful redevelopment of the National Aquarium, and a proposal which the council then puts forward in the future. So this carbon neutral idea. So with climate change, our big issue for this century, any council-owned facility, especially any new build, we feel needs to demonstrate that the council is doing its bit to tackle this big topic. So as a council, you need to lead the way so citizens, especially the next generation, can see how important it is now and not in 30 years when it's too late. So it's the responsibility of any council to have long-term vision and to take that role model position in the community. Now, I mention that because looking at the Project Shapeshifter proposal, I don't remember seeing any reference to anything like using solar panels. I could be wrong, so someone here who, I've been looking at everything online. I don't have any hard copies of the proposal. I tried to find that specifically because that's an important point to make. I think when Napier, one thing we have to offer, we have 200 more hours of sunshine per annum than Auckland and Wellington. So I think we should be taking advantage of that. And if we get the building right, I think the rest of the country will sit up and notice. So we've by bringing our precious and iconic National Aquarium into the 21st century with the best carbon neutral green build possible, I think that's your opportunity to show what our small city is capable of. Visitors won't just marvel at what's on the inside of the facility, but the actual building itself will inspire and educate. So such buildings do exist. This is not something which is, we can't achieve that. They do exist. I think there was something in the Dominion Post recently about a house in Otago, which was a carbon neutral build. So that's a house. I know it's a house. It's not a big facility. It's not an aquarium. But there's another building in the Netherlands. We've given you the link as well, which has a little 6-minute video attached to it. If you watch that, I think you'll actually go, wow. And actually looking at it, you can almost picture that sitting on the Marine Parade and looking like a stingray and with all its solar panels, etc. It's inspirational. And if you know it exists and it's achievable, I think we could do it as well. So I think that would actually give us that point of difference, again, when you're putting in a proposal, if maybe that sort of thing is included. So I'll hand you over now to Amelia, who has also some encouraging, hopefully positive news to share with you about a recent survey which she carried out.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and councillors and everyone here, hello, and thank you to any schools tuning in to watch. I love the National Aquarium and I've always enjoyed visiting it to see the animals, and I've learnt something new every time. I also appreciate its value as a learning tool for schools. So when I read in this booklet that you might close it, I felt I had to do something about it. Therefore, I created an online survey and shared it with schools in Napier to find out what my peers and teachers think about your options of keeping, refurbishing or closing and repurposing the National Aquarium. I used your model from the online survey, I used your model from the annual plan submission questionnaire to style the questions. And, similar to your Colmar-Brunton survey, I let it run for a week with the aim of receiving 1,000 responses. I felt it would give me a decent amount of data to present to you all today. These are my findings. I received over 1,000 responses. Approximately 80% were from students, mostly from high schools, and over 130 teachers responded. Question 1 read, the Napier City Council should keep and maintain the National Aquarium. What do you think? 82% agreed, 4% disagreed, and the rest were neutral. Question 2 read, the Napier City Council should refurbish and improve the National Aquarium. What do you think? 70% agreed, 7% disagreed, and the rest were neutral. Question 3 was, the Napier City Council should close and repurpose the National Aquarium. What do you think? 70% disagreed, 9% agreed, and the rest were neutral. To summarise, the results clearly show overwhelming support to keep, maintain, and improve the National Aquarium. This in turn supports your proposed refurbishment efforts and hopefully gives you the boost you need to make you see the potential and need for a second proposal attempt. One thing that struck me was that from nearly 500 comments received, only one person mentioned Project Shapeshifter by name, which I think shows a lack of awareness about your initial proposal. The comments and suggestions people made covered a lot of what you already had in Project Shapeshifter, such as bigger and better enclosures for the animals, new and exciting hands-on exhibits, and a cafe with sea views. A few things that stood out which Project Shapeshifter didn't appear to include. These suggestions were both from students and teachers. A carbon-neutral, environmentally friendly building, a marine animal rescue, rehab and release centre, not just for birds, solar panels on the roof of the facility. I also read the Council's workshop feedback from consultation with youth and other groups last year, which mentioned the same ideas. It must be an eco-building, the whole process must be environmentally friendly, it needs to be a rescue and rehabilitation centre, save animals and teach conservation. With that in mind, I would like to request that when you consult with the community in the future, that you include both of those points when asking for feedback. It may help you when moving forward with any future proposal. Thank you for letting me share my findings with you. If anyone would like a complete printout of all the comments I received, please let me know. I would like to take this opportunity as well to thank all schools for letting me share their survey with them.
Yeah, so thank you for hearing us this morning. And we have a handout with a brief summary for all of you with a recap of what we've just said and what we're asking for in the process of going forward.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify for you, the Shapeshifter project has not been shelved. We currently have a resolution that is seeking funding from central government, both for the capital project itself and ongoing operational support for the facility. So that is where we're at with that particular proposal.
That's good to
and
hear, yeah.
With the looming elections, it's pretty much we're just waiting till later in the year, then we'll continue that conversation with central government.
Okay, no, that's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we give this to somebody to pass around?
If you pop it over with our governance team, they can distribute that later. I will just quickly, we are over time, but if anyone has any burning questions they'd like to ask, I'll open that up to the table. No? Okay. Thank you, Emily and Amelia.
Thank you.
And next, I would welcome Richard Catley from Taradell Residents Association. Welcome, when you're ready.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Richard Catley, and I'm making a submission on behalf of the Pirramai Residents Association, which I chair. The Pirramai Residents Association, or I'll call it PRA, was founded in 2000 to provide a community voice for the southern Pirramai area. We're a group representing residents, businesses, government and non-government organisations in the area, and we meet monthly to look at issues affecting our suburb. Thank you for the opportunity to speak face-to-face with you, especially with so many newcomers, not necessarily knowing us. And congratulations to you all. We like what we see you doing and believe that you are a council that will listen to the people. We know our ward councillors and many Napier City Council staff members as well, as they regularly attend our meetings and listen to us and give us a better understanding of council services and initiatives and to strengthen a shared teamwork approach to community matters. So I'd like to discuss the Allenbury Reserve. So for the past 12 years, we have made submissions annually to the Council which have included our request for the Allenbury Reserve to be extended into some of the adjacent Ministry of Education site, which was formerly the school. Since our last submission, we have seen Mana Ahuri's development plans, which include acquiring the school site for housing as part of their $19.5 million treaty settlement claim. I have actually attached a plan, which I think you will all have. The concept also included a land swap and moved some of the Allenbury Reserve into Crown land. Although we are not opposed to the development of housing per se in the area and appreciate the contribution such homes and people would make to the area, we are respectfully asking the Council to work with the residents when considering supporting a plan involving moving a public reserve as part of such a development. The plan also reduces the existing road boundary to 1/3 of its current frontage. We do not think this will make the reserve safe and accessible for our children, elders and residents. We're also keen to know what is happening with the $100,000 Council put into the long-term plan for the reserve. We would appreciate an opportunity to discuss its use with Council. So what we're asking for is we would like to have input into any reconfiguration of the Allenbury Reserve and Council's discussions with Mana Ahuri on this and their housing proposal. We are asking that the Council make the case on our behalf for extending the Allenbury Reserve into the Crown-owned land which is part of the treaty settlement. The Council meets with the Purumae Residents Association this year in order to progress the suburb plan which was first mooted in 2014 and subsequent years. We're also asking that the Council discuss with us how the $100,000 set aside in the long-term plan is spent on the reserve. We're hoping to continue working constructively and collaboratively with you throughout your term of office. Thank you for considering our submission and look forward to hearing back from you. So attached to this, I've just put a bit of a, there's a bit of a map and that sort of thing on what the current reserve looks like, showing the full school site and the Allenbury Reserve. I've also included a copy of the proposal we came across, which I do realise was only a scheme plan thrown together for an idea. It just horrified a number of residents to see the reserve being switched around like that. I know places like the kindergarten certainly do not support it. We just want to keep as much land as we can there for a reserve. Unfortunately, once it's gone, it's gone. When it's built on, you'll never see it back. So it's just a case of considering that and working something out that'll work. Yeah. So that's me.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Councillor Tapani.
Just one question. Greetings, Richard. This shows quite a lot of work. I was wondering if you could outline to me the number of parties, stakeholders or groups that in your community who are also participating in the conversation outside of the Purumae Residents Association?
Basically, we've set up a small group of the business owners, so that's everybody in the shopping complex, fish and chip shop. We've got obviously the cafeteria, we've got the church, we've got Birthright. The kindergarten are quite heavily involved. In fact, she's been very regularly ringing me lately after seeing this, most concerned. Basically residents, they all sort of know me in the area now, so whenever I bump into them, they're always asking how things are going and has anything come of it. So it's certainly a wide range. Yeah.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Richard.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
And next up, I would welcome Bronwyn Edwards. Just a reminder for anyone that has arrived since the opening, speakers are allocated 10 minutes with a bell at 8 minutes and then 2 bells at 10 minutes, and questions are included in that time. Good, thank you.
Before you get it, okay. just got a copy of your way. Thank you. Okay. Righto, thanks, Donna. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. What's that on? I'll start it in just a sec. I'll just click on that. Will it play?
Put me running the stick.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay, I don't mind. Okay, cool.
Welcome, Bronwyn, when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Please forgive me for my nervousness, my first time done anything like this. However, I really am thankful of the opportunity because I'm here today to talk about something I'm really passionate about and something that I see as a real issue in our community. I'm here on behalf of myself and my family and also very much local neighbours and community of the Milton Road area and Hill as well, due to the amount of break-ins and car break-ins and thefts of property and stuff that's been going on, especially in the last sort of 2.5 years, more so than ever from the information that I'm gathering from people that have lived there for long periods of time. So if you just bear with me first and foremost, I'm going to play some CCTV footage for you, very short ones, just so that you can get the idea of what we're living with on a daily basis, all of us, and what's going on in our community. So hopefully it will play. Where does it play? Sorry, it's happening here, but it's not happening there. Oh, cool. Can you make that big, the whole screen, like the big? Okay, now how do I go to the next one when I want to go? Do I just press escape? Okay, cool. Okay, so I'll just ask you if you don't mind, this is on the 17th of June, just gone, if you just take note of the time, and it looks very boring, but that vehicle is actually something to be most interested in. This is at 2:45 in the morning.
Oh.
Sorry, this one's not playing there. I'll get rid of that one, maybe. And this one especially, if you could just take note of this, this is the same vehicle that's returned and has parked on the footpath right next door to my property, outside a set of 3 flats. And where that car is parked and these males are getting out of, there is a man sleeping within 2 metres of that passenger door of that vehicle inside his flat.
You're a truck like that.
So here they come. This is my vehicle. This man's pulling his sleeve down, as you can see, and is about to have a go at the back of my vehicle. One of the others is checking but he looks up and sees my CCTV camera, which seems to change his mind. Here's the other one. He's just finished looking at the car across the road, and this other guy at the top has just been in and around the flats next door to me, as well as checking, trying to break into the 3 vehicles that are parked right there. And as I say, during all of this event, the man in the flat next to where they parked their vehicle is sleeping. He's actually said he woke and heard some scuffling around the back, around his doorway, but chose not to go out in case it was dangerous, which I think would have been on that night with 3 of them there. So I'll just move on now. Why is it not escaping? Do I just press, sorry guys, press the group, that one? Yeah. Thank you, you can all help with this. So then, so this shows, this is my CCTV footage from the camera that guy looked up and saw. So again, I catch them as well from my CCTV footage moving down Milton Road. So this is we're about 100 metres, 150 metres up Milton Road from Tennyson Street end. So they all go down the street, and we can only guess that they've been down there trying out all of the vehicles and any property they might be able to pick up and take. I'll just go through quickly here. Then they come back again and they run past my cameras. The last one walks past, and he actually is quite easy to see. However, we haven't been able to identify them to date. These guys come running past. They're quite casual about the whole thing. They're out having a nice evening, obviously doing what they do. So again, this is just as an example, because unless you see this, you actually can't believe what's going on our streets, I feel. So I was sleeping soundly just inside where my car was too that night, and then the next day I got a visit from a young man who lives up the road further, whose property, his father and his property had been broken into, and they gave me the time to see if I could look at Cctv footage to see if I could find anything. These people live up past Cameron Road, up towards the top of Milton Road, and they're tradesmen who have been had their property taken from their work trucks 3 times before. So this shows the 3 culprits again have gone up Milton Road, and now they are just about to go through these vehicles and start thieving from them. So what happens next, you'll see my neighbours from up the road actually eventually wake from some noise that they make and chase them all off down the road. Not before they'd actually taken $5,000 worth of power tools from this vehicle at the front of the driveway close to the house. However, because this young man and his father took chase, the culprits ran down Milton Road towards my place again, dropping the tools, and so these tradies picked them up as they went in order to get back their property. I won't show you everything, but I will show you the parts that are most pertinent due to the time factor here today. But I think a picture says 1,000 words, so in this case, Cctv footage says 1,000 stories. And the reason I want you to see this part is this is what us law-abiding citizens have to do in order to protect our property, and in coming out of our homes at this time of the morning when no one else is about, it puts us under our safety at risk hugely, I feel. It seems a long time when we're watching this, but this is all within a minute or so that they load themselves up, and the local gentleman in the house is just waking and rousing his son. And a lot happens, a lot can be lost within a very short time period.
2 more minutes.
What does that mean? Is that 2 minutes left? Okay. All right. So, as I say, then you'll see the neighbour coming out in just a moment and following them down the road. But as you can see too, these are 3 burly blokes. If it all went pear-shaped, we could have something way more serious to deal with than theft of property. Here he is finally coming out, and they chase, and then they take off. Here they are, the third one's there, and that's them running down the road. So the story goes that these 2 gents, pardon the undies, run down the Milton Road, yelling and hollering, wanting their stuff back. So this is what's happening in our beautiful city in the middle of the nights. So, as I'm speaking, I'll just play this one. this is because they dropped everything, continued to run down, and they came back to their car, which they very sensibly, you'll notice when the driver gets to it, had locked prior to going on their thieving spree in order to stop anyone from stealing their car. So, CCTV is why I'm here today, to talk about the need for Napier City Council to please take responsibility for upgrading, taking over the CCTV footage that's now run and I think is even owned by the Napier Safety Trust. My investigation into this, after the neighbours up the road had placed this as a police, they rang the police, it's in their books, they have not been able to recognise that registration plate number from that vehicle because my CCTV footage is not fine enough. So I'm asking for you to take over the Napier City Safety Trust cameras. There's only 9 of them, and you have a map of those in the city. I've spent numerous hours trying to find CCTV footage because, to me, we should be able to recognise that car as it goes down the bottom of Milton Road and drives happily away around the city centre. There are no cameras to back up any of this information. We cannot make a charge. We cannot track these people down. We think that the police agree if there was a registration plate number, we would be able to do so. I've worked in public transport in Western Australia, and I've been involved in CCTV footage, downloading, information collection, backing up of police resources, and taking people to court after tracking them through cities and public transport, all sorts of means, through shops and different cameras, and seeing people in court being charged and sentenced for theft. So I just ask you, please, to look at resources. Cameras are not as expensive as they used to be. My cameras were $399 for 8 cameras. It's time now, I think, to step up. We're just lucky that it's a theft and not something worse from this night. And also, if you counter in the need for tracking people with the COVID issue that we have, that's just come about in the last few days, then I ask Napier City Council to take account for the Napier people's safety and help us in this issue. I'd be willing to help at any time. A safety council is what I would actually ask as well, to be put together so that this can be discussed and designed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bronwyn. Are there any questions from councillors? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do that safety thing. Where's that little safety thing? Is it that one? No, that one? It's got a different little icon than my one, that's all. Cool, thank you.
What was that?
Thanks.
That's
Okay. Our next 2 submissions are Deborah by yourself? No, Robert?
No, Robin couldn't make it. Because we're all working people. Sorry, it's very difficult
What have you done?
for those working to get to these things.
And Deborah,
We actually have something from them.
Deborah's here submitting on behalf of Clean Earth Limited and following that on the Jervois Town Residents Facebook group. So welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, Your Worship and councillors. Just before I start, I just would like to acknowledge the passing of Minnie Ratama. I know many of you worked with her closely and will be feeling her loss keenly. So I just wanted to say my condolences to all of you who feel that loss right now. So I'm going to presume that you have read the submission that I put in. I have... Because Robin couldn't make it this morning, he has actually sent something through to me this morning, and I should have enough copies for all of you. I'll come to that in a minute. And I appreciate that we do have this opportunity as contractors to get in front of you again about this issue. because if you have read the material that I sent to you, and it's not particularly long, then you'll be fully aware that as contractors collecting curbside waste through wheelie bin services, that all of us collectively feel very, very unheard. That council did not engage with us before putting material out to the public and did not work with us. We were just told. So I think when you've made a decision that decimates the bread and butter business of every local wheelie bin contractor in Hawke's Bay, locally owned and operated contractor in Hawke's Bay, I think that's very, very poor of council, and I have actually submitted for 30 years to this council in all its incarnations with all of its mayors and all of its councillors, often with the Hogans from Action Bins, to say, please, when you are making these decisions that involve millions of dollars of ratepayer funds, millions, that you actually fairly treat us as stakeholders the way you appear to for every other group in our community. Obviously, I've been quite busy just recently and had got out of hospital, so I haven't looked at all of the officers' comments that came through about the submissions, but a couple that did catch my eye, and I definitely want to draw your attention to those, is I'm really concerned that your council officers have given you feedback that the tender for curbside collections was available to any of the local contractors. Now, technically, that's correct. Fundamentally, it's utterly incorrect. The terms of the tender that you set excluded every single local operator from any ability to put a tender in. And you guys made that decision. So I'm sitting here as someone who has supported you, I have voted for you, I have shared you with the community so that you can hold this role that you hold, and I'm devastated that when you serve Napier, that you're not serving Napier. I'd like you to challenge the information that you receive. I'd like you to question the information that you receive. I'd just actually like you to be a lot smarter. And I'm going to ask you a question. Why is it that you reject the material that comes from locally owned and operated contractors repeatedly in favour of the information that comes from corporate China operations, that comes from billionaire-owned companies in Australia? Why is it that that material is considered up here and far more important to you than the information from your own local contractors? You are doing that. I'm not doing that. You're doing that. I'm just a housewife who started a wheelie bin business. But I care about Napier, and I care about the decisions that are made for Napier, especially when they are so expensive. The officers' report material and the other submissions that came in, I saw there was one there from Grey Power, and I was surprised that it apparently supported the wheelie bins, because every age group that represents the elderly and the older people in our community generally do not support wheelie bin use. They are fundamentally dangerous for older people to use. Now, there's material in Annette, I'm just going to allude to the public huddle. We had an issue at the huddle where it was put out there that bag collection is less safe than wheelie bin collection. I don't know where you've got that information. You shouldn't have that sitting in your minds. That you should not feel that wheelie bin collection is safer somehow than bag collection. There was a death in Gisborne from a young child, and that's from the automated side lifters. Jason Gunn injured himself with a wheelie bin. Jesse Mulligan injured himself with a wheelie bin. I have sent all of you who were past councillors material from Australia regarding the wrist and hand injuries in the older person using wheelie bins. This is all publicly available information, and I have sent it to you. So when you make a decision that is millions and millions of dollars, and when you back up that decision by saying, oh, it's because it's safer, when I know that to be absolutely untrue, and so should you, I'm a bit peeved off. It's not okay. It's absolutely not okay that you sit there as elected members and make a decision that destroys locally owned and operated businesses. It's disgusting, as you can probably tell. I'm furious about it. You have an obligation to serve Napier people, to provide waste collection services to the maximum number for the minimum cost.
Excuse me, Deborah, sorry to interrupt, but Deputy Mayor Brosnan just has a question she'd like
Sure.
to ask you.
Thank you, Deborah. And I am really interested to ask you this question. It's on the first point that you raised around the local tendering, because this was something that I know the waste management team, we specifically asked for the fact that local contractors would not be excluded. And I know you've said in the wording of the tender that excluded local tenderers. So I'm interested just to understand what in that wording may have excluded
Could
local
all
tenderers.
of you ring either
but
Bay
if-
Environmental, Robin Thomas or Blue Bins? The terms of the tender was such that it was so horrifically expensive to set up and capitally intensive that they could not tender.
Yeah, because that's my question, because I asked staff on this matter and I just asked a question and they provided me that a pre-tender meeting for all contractors, including inviting local contractors, was held, and that
Yes,
they
you've had lots of
actually-
meetings.
and that they re-tendered for the villages component of the waste.
Okay, I'm going to
and
talk about that tender. Yep.
And specifically invited local tenderers, and I know that was at council's direction. So
Yep.
I am really interested, I suppose, and I know this is a really emotive issue, but I'm really interested.
Well, you're
in,
destroying local businesses, so yes, very emotive, very emotive.
So I'm really interested to understand, because I would like to understand what in the tender document excluded local contractors,
cost.
either individually or as a collective.
As a collective, but why don't you pick up the phone? We are here, we are a resource. Every single one of you who was on the council last term, I regularly sent material to you and I said, ring me anytime, talk to me anytime, meet with me anytime, I will discuss this anytime with you. Api did, Kirsten did, and poor Tania, because we do other things, had her ears bashed regularly, whether she wanted that or not. But none of the rest of you, to the best of my understanding, actually did. The incoming councillors, you've had material from me, you two have not. Pick up the phone, talk to us. It's too late about this tender that's been let. It's way too late. It's done now. But it's a 7-year tender with an extra 3 years, that's 10 years. You have now just handed Kerbside waste to, are you doing it with TPI or are you doing it with JJ's? Australia. Your tender's with JJ's? For the Kerbside pickup? You must know who's got the tender.
We're not here to discuss that today, Deborah, so we'll...
Oh, so you can't even confirm right now? Like, come on, we're having a discussion here. This is why we're here.
Well, we're not
Is it
we're
JJ's
not
that's
actually
got
having a
it from the
discussion.
first-
We're listening to you submit on the recycling
Is it the
contract.
first?
So just
well, it's actually
can
on
we
the rubbish
stay within
contract.
the
So the
confines
1st of
what we're
October,
here
where
for?
you're going to roll out the bins, whatever, if it's JJ's, you've handed it to Australia, $1 billion company, and if it's TPI, Chinese company. And I just expect more of you. I expect you to ask more questions. I expect you to ask more questions of the staff. I think when you put publicly out there to support local, buy local, and you don't do it yourself, that's disgusting. I have asked, please, when you do this sort of thing, can you please actually talk to the businesses and the companies that you're going to affect most? You don't. You tell us afterwards. So I have got this material from Robin Thomas. I'll make sure it's passed out to you all. And Thomas, Robin's first thing here, he says, from our point of view, council has gone ahead with the wheelie bin rollout with no consultation with those most affected. Now, I know your staff are going to say that's not true because on this face of it, it appears that you've consulted with us. No, you have not. You have told us what you're going to do. You have not listened to us. You have not heard us. You have not engaged with us. You receive your material via waste mins. You receive your material via your staff, and respectfully, I don't know if anyone on your staff's ever operated a waste company or had anything to do with waste. They're administrative people, not practical people.
Thank you, Deborah. And I would just like to advise that, we have consulted extensively with the community on both our recycling and the curbside refuge
Respectfully, the
collection.
community doesn't
And
understand what you've done. They're just happy they've got a
However,
plastic wheelie bin.
it's not fair to sit here and accuse us of not being in conversations with our community. So I'm just
I never made that accusation. I said you hadn't consulted with us.
Okay. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, I couldn't quite understand your answer to Deputy Mayor Brosnan's question. What were the terms that were prohibitive for the group, for the local?
To be clear, Clean Earth doesn't tender on council contracts. It's not what we do. We're not interested in that. I would just like to add that Blue Bins did not put his name to the submission because he was terrified he wouldn't get a contract if he did. So I'd just like to put that there. That's your village contract. So actually, can I please talk about both of those terms? So your village contract, what your staff have set for what they want in the villages is a way of doing things, but instead of setting the tender terms and then expecting us to meet those, I think there was 25 pages about that tender. It's not a big job at all. You don't need 25 pages about it and then another 25 pages about something else. And when Daniel said what he said, I just said, oh, well, I won't bother tendering then, I don't need the work. So again, you become like price takers because you set tender terms that aren't possibly the best way to do it. With the Kerbside contract, it was completely written for either those big players. So JJ's EnviroWaste, Smart, Street Smart, those big companies are the only ones who would have been able to meet those terms because of the cost, just the sheer capital cost of implementing that. And what have you got? You've got, well, instead of a bag, you've got a plastic bin. Fundamentally, nothing has changed about waste. The consumer, the ratepayer, they're not changing their waste behaviour. All you've changed is the receptacle. So you've changed nothing and you've made the price just horrifically high and then set the tender in such a way that it's so long, I'd be surprised that it didn't remain with that incumbent for another 10 years after that. It's hugely expensive, Hayley. Okay. Massively expensive.
I will stop us now because we have actually gone 5 minutes over the allocated time, and we'll move on to your second submission. Thank you.
Cool. So if I'll pass those out or I'll put them... Richard, can I give those to you? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I would appreciate that you read... This is from Robin Thomas. He wanted to be here today. He wanted to say this. So no, this has not been attached to the submission. Are you happy to receive it or would you like to have it?
No, sorry, we cannot accept new information.
Okay, I'll organise emailing it to you separately.
And just an explanation for that for people that do wonder why we can't. Obviously, an annual plan submission process needs to be fair to all parties that are involved. So we can't provide an opportunity for one submitter to put in additional information.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What I can do is I can email it separately. So just regarding Jervois Town, thank you very much to Natasha, who meets regularly with everyone in Jervois Town. So obviously rubbish is a hot topic for me. Our area is trashed all the time with so much waste. It's not funny. It gets into the stormwater drains and what have you. We have limited lighting. I'm just going to quickly go through this. So we've met with neighbourhood support. We have quite a strong Facebook group. Regarding this submission today, I have to be very clear that 3 members of the Jervois Town Committee said I must not say I'm from the Jervois Town Facebook group. So although we had a meeting at the game farm and we all were in agreement with the basic things that are in here about lighting, about safety, about beautification, that 3 members of the Jervois Facebook group at least said you can't go and say that on our behalf. What I've said instead is, well, if we want to engage with council and we want to do better things for our community, we actually have to follow this procedure. So that's why we're here today. Rob Sunkel, he has asked me to just bring this along. This is to do with, I don't know if any of you have been out there, the beautification on the corners has got some grasses in it. They're actually seeding. He's really distressed and upset about that, so I'll leave that. Is this an extra submission? I'm not sure, but there we go. Rob's not happy about the plantings and he'd like that looked at, and there's some issues around where those drains have gone in. But ultimately, what I would like to see from council is something that will mitigate, and your previous speaker, what she was talking about, safety and security in our city. For us out there in Miani, Jervois Town, we don't have a lot of lighting, we do have those open drains, and we just have a massive, massive problem with rogue dumping, and we would like to ask council to keep working with us, please, on trying to do things to mitigate and address that. And particularly with the Bupa village around the corner now, and I see they've put their drainage below ground, and that's going to look really nice, and I suspect that'll mean no more dumping will happen there. Just asking if we can look at moving back to Bernice Road and down Bernice Road. There's a huge grass verge on that side of Beaton's there, and if we could have some sort of wandery path, native plantings, just something that the community can use. It's a huge area for walkers and parents with prams and kids on bikes and ponies and horses and all that sort of thing. So that's what the community is, well, most of the community, apart from the three grumpy ones, would like to see happen. So, yeah, any questions about that?
Are there any questions, councillors? No? Councillor Taylor.
So, Deborah, you're now suggesting that like a pathway.
They look, to be very clear, Jervois Town proper, if you like, Napier Street and Jervois Street, no. They're very opposed to footpaths and curbings. I don't know why, but that's very fair to say. They don't want that in that area. But I'm talking more about maybe something like, you know, the boardwalk at Ahariri, just something meandery, something that can get them off the road, because how it is right now, everyone who goes down Bernice Road is walking in the road, and it is dangerous because there isn't a curb, there isn't a gutter. I'd just like to see them off the road. And when we had the COVID close down, it just made it really obvious how many people use that area as a regular thing. And I just think we can make it look better. And I think if we make it look better, there'll be less incentive for the rat bags to go there dumping stuff. And as you might be aware, one of your signs was in the drain for quite some time, Councillor Taylor, but it got removed.
Moving right along. Are there any further questions? And Deborah, I know I've discussed this with you previously, but again, encouraging you to make an application to the Te Pua Waitanga Fund, which could assist with doing some of the native planting
When
projects.
does that close?
It actually doesn't have a closure date. Well,
Okay,
it's a year or until it's all gone.
Okay,
So the sooner you get it in, the better.
Yeah, and someone on the group has actually already voiced that they wanted to do it. It's quite hard to corral a community into all wanting exactly the same thing.
We know. We know.
So hopefully we can get some consensus about it. And I did talk, was it Tony
Mills?
Yes, Tony spoke to me about the speed. So we still have a problem from Jervois Town proper to the end of Tannery Road. It's got a huge open road speed sign. I really wish, can we just take it down? Because everyone tries to get to 150 by the time they reach my place. And the traffic calming bit, just before you get into Jervois Town proper, that actually means that people who are walking there, they end up even more in the road. It's kind of made a worse bottleneck, and Tony acknowledged that. He didn't agree with me that we should change the speed necessarily, but yeah, I appreciate that most of the staff that I deal with are quite awesome at the Napier City Council, and generally most of you are too. But it would be great. It would be great to be acknowledged. Yes. And so, does someone want Rob's seeds? He's very upset about this. It's a problem with the plant
If you
itself.
pop them over to Debbie, we'll find someone to have a look at those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I hope you recover from your surgery soon.
We put your sign up over this.
Cool, thank you. Oh, no worries.
Done for less than that.
And this brings us to our final submission to this year's annual plan, Rosamond Stewart. And Dirk from Natoy. Oh, not Dirk, sorry, Dirk. Dirk was yesterday, a different submission. Amazing. Welcome.
Thank you. Morning.
You're ready.
So, would you like us to start, Madam Mayor?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Ngātoi Hawke's Bay is a autonomous trust. We're independent, a series of volunteers. We've taken over the mantle from a body that used to be called Creative Hawke's Bay, which is known to the Napier City Council. And our task is to bring together the arts and cultural groups and people in Hawke's Bay to promote, advocate and lobby for the arts and in the community. Our vision is Hawke's Bay, a thriving arts and cultural region, and as you, I'm sure, know, there are plenty of practitioners and groups in Hawke's Bay, both in Hastings and in Napier, that give the province a reputation for arts and cultural productivity. So Ngātoi is a voluntary organisation and we have very limited resources. We have in the past applied to both the Napier City Council and the Hastings District Council for support for baseline work and for small projects. We've now reached the point where the Hastings District Council is asking Ngātoi to be the implementer of their arts and cultural strategy. And Ngātoi has always taken the view that this strategy should involve Napier and that the Napier City Council should be involved in this work because there's a very artificial line between Napier and Hastings when it comes to arts and cultural work. So we are applying to you for a sum of money and we are applying to you to put into your plan and into your longer term plan support for the arts and cultural community through Ngātoi Hawke's Bay. This will enable us to do a number of things. At present, as I said, we are all volunteers. We need to have somebody who works for us almost full time to carry out our work. We have a series of initiatives that we want to execute in the community, both in Hastings and in Napier. This involves things like workshops to bring artists up to speed in their practice, master classes for people to see some of the leading Hawke's Bay artists and how they do their work, and in particular a much better communication strategy involving the web, Facebook and other media so that people can see what the arts and cultural work in Hawke's Bay looks like, who the people are. And finally, and this is of a benefit to both councils and also to the New Zealand Arts Council in Wellington, we represent one body that you can deal with as an advocate for the arts and cultural sector. And our sole task is to make sure that people are aware that we are advocating for this purpose. The current COVID-19 crisis has hit the arts and cultural community pretty hard. and we are trying to show our light to people in the province so that they can feel there is somebody who is advocating on their behalf. So that's the general approach that we are taking, Madam Mayor and councillors. We are having a similar conversation with the Hastings District Council, and we are also having a similar conversation with Creative New Zealand in Wellington, so that we in Hawke's Bay can be part of their New Zealand-wide network of arts and cultural organisations. So I'm very happy to take questions. Ros Stewart is here with me. She's a Napier resident, as you know, and an artist in her own right. She's been a long time member of both Creative Hawke's Bay and Toy Hawke's Bay.
Thank you, Dick. Are there any questions of Dick or Ros? Councillor Wright.
Hi, Dick. Would it be fair to say that the arts and cultural strategy created by Hastings was intended to be a regional strategy?
Yes, it is a regional strategy, and it is drafted as a regional strategy, and it is inclusive of Napier, and further out in time, I'm sure it will be inclusive of Central Hawke's Bay and Wairoa as well.
Was there an expectation with that plan that Ngātoi would be the delivery agent for a lot of the outcomes of that plan?
Well, if you read the plan as it's currently drafted, it's quite heavy on purpose, but it has very little in it about execution. And why the Hastings District Council has turned to us is because they want an organisation to implement the strategy for them. So we have said to Hastings, and we'll say it to you, that we have ideas about how that strategy can best be implemented and the cost at which it can be done. So if you like, they have turned to us because they see that in their current thinking, the HDC can't do it by themselves. They need somebody with a reach into the arts and cultural community to do it for them.
Excuse me, Dick, I was at Hastings Council when that Toi 2 strategy was approved, and Mayor Sandra did look at us and say, we want Ngātoi to implement this strategy. And they were going to look for funding to make that happen, because we can't do it as volunteers.
So it's fair to say that currently they haven't attached any funding to implement that strategy, and that's why you're here today, because you're seeing that if they can give you some funding and we can, and maybe Creative New Zealand, then you can start to actually develop a plan to implement the strategy.
That's
is that correct?
exactly right. And that's what we do. We are the only body who does what we do and lobby and advocate to both, at the moment, Napier and Hastings councils and Creative New Zealand. And because of the current environment in New Zealand, there is quite a bit of funding from the Ministry of Arts and Culture and Heritage, and they do see us as having a lot of potential, but we're a bit fractured and scattered and broken. Whether that's got something to do with 5 councils for a population of nearly 200,000, I don't know, but they do see a lot of potential here, and they want to support Creative New Zealand too. But they won't do it if Napier and Hastings, if we can't have a similar relationship and conversation with and support from Hastings and Napier.
So just to clarify that, so today the Napier City Council needs to accept that there is a regional arts strategy and accept that there is a body that is prepared to implement that strategy on our behalf, and then to consider funding it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
And further to that, councillors, I recently met with Dick to discuss this strategy. It was the first time that I had an opportunity to have a brief look at it, and Dick and I'm sure other members of Ngātoi will be coming to present that to us in full as a council later this year, so that we can then support and have an understanding of the work that's been undertaken. And I was provided with reassurance that there were a number of Napier community groups and key stakeholders within the arts and culture sector who were involved in the development of the strategy. So, thank you very much. Are there any further questions? Councillor Brown.
Thank you. It sounds like quite a lot of work implementing a strategy, and you're basically run off volunteers at the moment. Are you comfortable that you'll have the capacity to ramp up or the capacity to roll out the strategy?
Yeah, I think I've said to both mayors and to both councils, we need to be able to start relatively slowly because we want to be able to make sure that the money you invest in us is wisely spent, and you, both councils, need to be able to see that you're getting something for your buck. But as we achieve that, let's say in the first year, I'm sure you will find that we will be able to ramp up to deliver more, because we have a number of ideas about how this can all be done, but we're not going to start off driving a super deluxe or four-wheel drive vehicle. We're going to start off small and then show you what we can do, and that will enable you to have confidence that as we go forward, your objectives, because they will be your objectives in the art and cultural strategy, will be met.
There's a lot of optimism at the moment. Sounds bizarre, I know, because the virus is present. Things change. I've been involved for over 26 years and 20 years in this particular organisation, and we've watched the different cycles of Helen Clark was Minister of Arts. That's why we exist, to cut a long story short. And now Jacinda is Minister of Arts. And then we've had the COVID recovery packages, and we need to nurture the creative sector even more. They're sensitive souls, and they have a bizarre life in that they make stuff and then they've got to hope that somebody will buy it one day. It's not like many other industries or businesses. And yet, when we went into full lockdown, how much creativity was on people's screens. There was music, there was theatre, there was comedy, there was dancing, there was just so much, people often giving it for love. And regarding your question, it's a really good question, but there's a sort of all these balls juggling in the air, and they're all saying, we want to support you financially so that we can provide the infrastructure. And that's what we're working hard to do right now.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Ros and Dick, very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Let's go.
That brings us to the conclusion of our verbal submissions. So we will break now for morning tea and then return to start our deliberations.